This is Exerscribe Radio, and you're listening to Kusha Karvandi. In today's podcast, I interview GarageWarrior.com's Tyler Bramlett. Tyler is an expert in bodyweight training and how to get results with the least amount of equipment. Tyler is a certified Russian kettlebell instructor, USAW sports performance coach. He's a certified kettlebell functional movement specialist, and he's also CrossFit Level 1 trainer certified. So yeah, just to get started, I guess, just tell me a little bit about, how you kind of got into health and fitness and what you're doing now.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it, and I'm hoping I can help some people listening to the call right now get some better results. So I'm Tyler Bramlett, founder of GarageWarrior.com, and that's a website that I tell people to go to if they want to look, feel, and perform their best. Right. So that's kind of my whole shtick: help you look better, feel better, perform better. And I am not the typical fitness guy in the essence of hey, I was always fit and so on and so forth. I was very overweight and out of shape and unhealthy as a young kid. I was the opposite of looking, feeling, and performing good. And I have very poor genes because both my parents are quite overweight. So I grew up in a house where I tell people my parents thought diet soda was a health food. Right. So I had a lot of uphill struggles to get to where I am now. And so ultimately it's like I had to fail a million times to get to where I am now. But every failure was like a new lesson along the way. And so I try to make it easier for people by not having them fail because I can teach them these lessons without having them go through that same process.
Awesome. So how'd you get into GarageWarrior.com?
Well, you know what, man? I was running a successful personal training business. Sorry about this phone in the background.
That's right.
I was running a successful personal training business. I was running 4 successful boot camps, and I was losing my mind. I was like, man, this is great, and I'm making a good living, and I'm helping a lot of people, but it was just too challenging to get the whole thing moving forward constantly. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to start an online. So, of course, my brain thinks I should probably start an online business, too, at the same time. So I started an online business, and I really saw the value and the potential in that because, in a local community, and I was helping, 300-400 people in an online community. Within 6 months, I was helping thousands of people, and now it's tens of thousands of people. And so I was just like, oh my God, this is so much more powerful in the long run. It helps me really take my ideas and spread it to more people, which is ultimately what I wanted. So I eventually ended up selling the boot camps and getting rid of my personal training clients and focusing 100% on building GarageWarrior.com. So that's my main focus right now, is just getting as many people to drink the punch, you know what I mean?
Exactly. And what are some of your main topics on the website that you try to get across?
So like the main kind of preface is progression, right? And I tell people if you're going to get from point A, which is fat, sick, tired, and ugly, whatever, to point B, which is look, feel, and perform your best, you've got to take steps, right? Nobody can argue that that's not true. You've got to take steps from point A to point B. Exactly. And so what I tell people is if you know the right steps to take, you don't have to worry about this person over here. You don't have to worry about looking the best you possibly can, feeling the best you possibly can, and performing the best you possibly can. All you have to worry about is the next step. Because I'm sure you've seen this, is that people, when you give them a goal, they're always thinking about something way too far in the future, and it limits them from taking that first step because they have that paralysis analysis. They're thinking about, what am I supposed to do to lose 100 pounds, 50 pounds, even 20 pounds? What if I were to tell you, hey, forget about that goal. Just focus on how to lose 2 pounds. How to increase your performance by 1%. You know what I mean? And if you can get people to start thinking in these small steps, then they start making significant progress. So I guess you could say I focus on progression and I focus on the basics. Honestly, the more I dove down the rabbit hole of fitness, nutrition, lifestyle tweaks, the more I realized there's not really that many things that can give you great results, right? There's a handful of them. And what people typically do is they bounce from one thing to the next, but they have zero consistency, so they get a little bit of results in each area, but by the time they come back around, they've gotten nothing to stick. And so, I'll tell people the simple stuff is when I get emails, Tyler, I don't know what to do, I'm confused by everything, blah, 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 blah. I say, okay, there's 6 things that you need to be doing, and you can email me again after you've done these 6 things for 90 days, right? Okay, first thing, drink more water, right? 64 ounces of water or more per day. Second thing, eat 10 plus servings of vegetables per day. Third thing, eat enough protein for your body. Generally, simple, catch-all recommendation, 100 to 150 grams for women, 150 to 200 grams for men, right? That's your dietary stuff. All right, next, sleep 7.5 hours every night if you can. If you can get more, that's fantastic. If you can't get somewhere, just get as close as you possibly can, all right? Sleep is so important. Walk every day, number 5. And the last one is do some exercise consistently 3 days a week, right?
Yeah.
And like, if I could just get people on those 6 things, I think that I'll be able to help way more people out there than if I'm out there trying to sell people on the stuff that gets you that last 5%.
Yeah.
I love that stuff, and I fell in the rabbit hole to learn that stuff, and ultimately came back around and realized that most people don't even need to know any of that stuff, right? They just need to know the basics, the 6 things I'm talking about, and to follow somebody who they trust, who they believe in, who can provide guidance on tweaking the rest of their diet, guidance on tweaking their exercise program. But just getting those really basic foundational things, that's what really matters, man.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's the main thing that I like to focus on with all my clients is just getting those fundamentals down. Just like the things that kind of like what you were talking about along the same lines of just get those basics down. Because once you have the structure in place, then you can create precision from there. But a lot of people try to create precision from day one when they have a poor structure.
Yeah. It's like building a tower on sand, right? It's
exactly.
It's going to crumple, dude.
Exactly. So are there any good books that you're reading right now?
The best book I read in a while was a few months back. I read a book called The One Thing, right? And if you guys haven't read that book, it's a quick read. It's really not a challenging read at all. You should read that book. And it really is simple. It asks you a question. What is the one thing you can do right now that will, if you achieve it, nothing else will matter, right? So like if you have a physical goal, if you have a business goal, it doesn't matter. What's the one thing? Not the 3 things, not the 5 things, because that's the problem. Is we focus on too much. I gave you 6 things, but the reality is when somebody comes to train with me, they don't get all 6, they get 1.
Yeah.
And they work on that for a little while they come to me to train, right? So typically it's like, hey, first thing you're gonna do is show up to me 3 days a week, right? And then once you master that, it's like, hey, let's work on the water next. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's the one thing is so powerful. It's taking that one thing, that one baby step. I don't know if you did the same mistake I did, but when I first started training people, I would give them like 2 pages of information with all the steps that it take, and then I email them this like 50-page book that I wrote about nutrition, and like it just didn't work, man. Yeah. Nobody did it. Nobody did it. And then when I started sliding a Post-it note across the table that said, "Drink 64 ounces of water per day," then people started getting results because it was easy, right?
Yeah,
one step is easy.
Exactly.
Yeah, one habit's so easy. So I think that The One Thing is a fantastic book for everybody to read. It doesn't matter if you want to build more success in your business or more physical success. It's a must-read for everybody.
No, I agree 100%. I think I really like precision nutrition and what John Berardi's doing with just breaking things down into simple habits like what you're talking about with nutrition. Yeah. And I like how you're kind of doing that same approach holistically with health and fitness, because when you break it down into habits, I used to do exactly what you're talking about, where I would say, hey, read this book, read this whole thing, try to do these 5 or 6, 10 different things right now today, rather than do it incrementally. And it's if you ask any clients, interesting, because now I have clients fill out a questionnaire, and one of the questions I ask is, would you rather see rapid results that you can't sustain, or would you rather see slow or incremental progress that you can sustain? And all of them always say incremental progress, that you might be a little bit slower, but that I can sustain.
Right.
So people even really, when it comes down to it, that's what they even prefer anyway, because logically it makes more sense. You're going to see sustainable progress, whereas, people inherently, I think, always want that magic pill, but at the same time, it's kind of like a paradox. They really don't want it. They do and they don't. So yeah, I really like that. That sounds like a good book. I'm going to check it out. I wrote that down. What blogs do you like to read besides your own?
I wish I could say I go out there and read a bunch of different blogs, but I focus so much on what I'm doing, and then I'm really, really try to turn it off. Like I'm that type of personality that I'll just kill myself working. Like I said, we were just talking before the call. I just released a new program, and we've had like 12,000 emails come through there, and I'm answering these emails, right? And I have this value of like customer service, where I want to answer these emails so I can help the most people, and it takes up so much time, and I would literally stay up all night if I could, but I have to tell myself, like, time to shut off, time to have dinner with your family, time to do this. And so I try not to spend my time on websites and blogs and stuff like that, because I know what's going to happen is I'm going to go on a blog, I'll read an article, then I'll be on my Facebook, that'll lead to my email. Next thing you know, I'll be back into emails. You know what I mean? So like, it's almost like I work, and then I kind of boycott technology. So in a lot of ways, I'm a little bit different than the average person, because most people go to technology as their cool down. I use technology as my work all day long. So I try to get away from it for my cool down.
What does your personal fitness program look like? Like, how many days a week do you work out?
You know, I do what I call flowgramming, right? Which basically means I have a set idea of what I want to get better at, right? In particular, right now I'm working on hand bouncing, I'm working on some ring work, and I'm working on getting my one-legged squat back from a pretty gnarly knee injury a couple years ago. I've been working on this one-legged squat for several years and several surgeries, but it's coming around. We're almost there, right? I can do it assisted now, which is really good. So those are kind of my basic kind of strength elements to it. From there, believe it or not, I actually pretty much use the workouts from the programs that I sell, right? So I have a program on ab training where it has basic core motor function stuff, and then it moves you into progressions of compression and stability, which is basically like planks and leg raises. I use that program, the workouts from that program. I have a program called CT50, which is kind of like a P90X-ish thing, but laid out in a progressive fashion rather than just giving you a video and saying follow along. It's like, hey, these are all beginner workouts. These are all intermediate workouts. These are all more advanced workouts. So I use those same kind of workouts with myself. And if I feel great, I'm going to do strength, I'm going to do abs, I'm going to do conditioning, and then I'll probably jump back and forth from a sauna to a cold shower, right? If I feel okay, maybe I'll just go outside and do a quick conditioning workout. If I'm feeling kind of tired, maybe I'll stretch for a half hour instead. So I don't really have perfect consistency of it, but I'm also happy with where I'm at. So I don't feel like I need to have like a sit out. This is exactly what I do these days because I train to improve my body, but to have fun as well. And I really think that the fun aspect of being able to know what you want to get better at it and practice it, but not having the overbearing. This is what you have to do on this day. That helps me a lot to stay consistent with just training in general. I find that when I do things under the microscope of like, hey, you have to do this squat every day on this day, I tend to not do it because I get mad at myself. It's almost like, no, I won't do it. I'm like punking myself. So I wish I could say I have a perfect program like that, but I really like the idea of doing exercise for fun and training for fun, and also just kind of identifying what I want to get better at and practicing those things more like an acrobat would practice their skills rather than like a workout routine. But then the conditioning stuff, it's pretty consistent, but it's varied. It's varied conditioning approach.
So do you work out in your garage?
So I moved 3 months ago, unfortunately, away from a house with my big, beautiful garage. And so I'm currently working out in 3 different places. My backyard, I have a kettlebell and some ground. I'm going to put a pull-up bar in there because it's driving me crazy that I don't have a pull-up bar. Then I have a gym down the street that I used to actually work at, that I work out at sometimes, but I hate seeing people, honestly, to be totally truthful. My workout's my time, so I don't want to be like, hey, Tyler, what about this? You know, like it's
exactly.
So then there's a rock climbing gym that I like to work out at as well, which has like a killer sauna, awesome rock climbing rigs, which I love rock climbing. I think it's one of the most beautiful expressions of upper body strength out there.
Oh, yeah.
So I work out at those 3 places, but in the next few weeks, I'm crossing my fingers, we're going to find a 1,000-square-foot warehouse to put all the Garage Warrior gear into. That way we can take our YouTube videos to the next level. I can take my training to the next level.
Nice.
It's going to be really awesome. It's going to be the perfect gym/man cave. I'm really excited about it.
So are you going to train people in there too, or no? Just more for your own stuff and filming?
I may. I don't have any personal clients right now. I stopped taking personal clients, and then I got rid of them because I got too dang busy with the online stuff. And I have a couple of people that just keep throwing numbers at me that I'm having a hard time refusing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I debate it because it takes up a lot of my time, but I love training people one-on-one because to me, like if you're an online guru who's never had legitimate one-on-one experience, you don't know shit about what really works, right?
Exactly.
Because I have friends that unfortunately have never really done the in the trenches training stuff, and so they can throw theory at you all day long, but they don't understand that it's not about theory. It's about how do you tap into that person's psychology and motivate them to do what it is you're trying to get them to do. There's so much more than just like, here's your program. This is the most high-tech program out there. It's about getting them consistent with it, Yeah. And so I might take on a 1 or 2 clients, and then ultimately I'd love to start doing more workshops and seminars so I could bring people from my online community out to my gym where I could have them for 3 days, and we could talk about these basic fundamentals and expand on them so they could go home with the tools necessary to train themselves or other people using this philosophy.
You should create your own certification.
Yeah, maybe at some point. I got some stuff down the pipeline. I got. You know how it is. As an entrepreneur, you always have something next, and so that's always been like right there in the back of my head. But it's not on the list of things to do just yet.
There we go. Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I'm currently a general manager at a major health club in San Diego. called Fit in downtown San Diego, and I got like 70 employees, and people think I'm crazy for still training because it does take up, valuable time of mine, but, it's kind of addictive for me. For me, it keeps me kind of really close to the workout floor. I get to know what's going on, and you get to really experience, what people are really going through from the trainer's perspective and even the client's perspective. So it is a lot of fun to do that. So I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
What do you think the most difficult thing is for someone who's new to working out?
Oh man, it's sifting through the bullshit, man. I wish I could say it's easy. Here's what I'm trying to say. Okay, like it's the concept of getting fit is easy.
Yeah.
The discipline of taking the steps it takes to get fit is hard. Like I share with you those 6 steps, and the reason why I hammer those with people so often is because you could take somebody who's getting results and be like, and they're like, I want to get better results, or I'm plateauing, and you're like, did you hit these 6 things? And they're like, oh, well, maybe I could sleep a little more, or maybe I'm not drinking enough water, or maybe my protein intake's a little low, or like, truth be told, bro, I'm not eating any vegetables. Like all those little things. Like you'd be surprised at how many people are almost at that really advanced level that still aren't doing those 6 basic things.
Exactly.
We can talk about program shifting. We can talk about creating proper programming for people and exercise correctives and mobility and stability and functional movement. We can talk about all this stuff, but like those 6 things are the basics. Mm-hmm. And if people follow that stuff, that's when they'll get results, right?
Exactly.
And if you get inundated by the amount of information out there, then I'm sorry to say it's going to be more and more challenging. It's almost like the more you know, the harder it is to know what's real, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's why I try to bring it down to the basics and give people the simple stuff. So the hardest thing is no doubt trying to figure out who's right. And my recommendation for people nowadays is like, okay, if you get on somebody's email list and you like them, follow their information, right?
Yeah.
Dig into it. Dive into it with all the passion you can muster up. 100% passion. Dive into it. Give it a real 90-day shot. What they say, do it for 90 days. And if you transform your body, stick with them, right? If you see progress, stick with them.
Yeah.
If you don't, or it just does not work with your lifestyle, opt out of their email list, opt out of their correspondence, and find somebody else. The problem I'm seeing is when people have 6 gurus all saying different things. And they like all 6 of them, but they don't know who to listen to.
Exactly.
Right? And I don't care if you're coming from my Facebook page listening to this or my email list listening to this or whatever. If I'm not the guy for you, find somebody else who is. Right? Because I want people to get results. I'm not here to be a con man to people. Yeah, I sell programs online, but I'm trying to get people results. And if I'm not the guy for you, find somebody who is. And the best way to do it is focus on one person at a time. Try their stuff for 90 days. If it works and you like it, keep doing it. If it doesn't, go to the next person and stop listening to that person.
No, I agree 100%. I feel like the fitness industry, the health and fitness space in itself is pretty nebulous. There's so much obscurity that people get lost in with all the fads and the paleos and the CrossFits and all that. It's hard for people to really find, what really works. And people people just really suck it up to experimentation, but I don't think that it really requires that much experimentation. I think it just requires, really abandoning the central dogmas that they kind of grew up with, and then really and then finding that right guru or that right source of information, the highest level of truth, wherever that might be from, and just sticking and following that. Especially I feel like the simplest stuff is what works best, like the stuff that you're talking about. I'm confident that your stuff, I guarantee, is getting results because the fact the first thing you said is that you focus on the fundamentals. I mean, I haven't even gone through your program as a client myself, but I can almost guarantee it's getting results at a high rate because of the fact that you're doing that. So programs like that I know are kind of the wave of the future, and I think a big part of it too is also accountability. People, I think my theory is that in the next 5 years, 50% or more of the personal training industry is going to be online. I feel like people just need. I've seen in the gym, for instance, I see a lot of people come in and join the gym. But 9 out of 10 don't want to train with the trainer because they want to be asynchronous. They want to have things on their own schedule.
Right.
But everyone needs accountability. That's the thing.
Sure.
And I feel like sometimes personal training, even though personal training is definitely I love it from the bottom of my heart because I've grown up with it in the last 8 years. But personal training is really a barrier to fitness for some people because when people join a gym, they're joining on the premise that they're going to get results on their own. A lot of people will tell me, I don't want a trainer. I don't need it. I know what to do on my own, and I've let people go and do their own thing, but I've realized that that's a mistake. Letting them go off on their own, even no matter how much they think that they have what it takes, they're setting themselves up for failure because they're basing their whole program, all their success, on this old dogma of, cardio is all I got to do to lose weight, or all I got to do is the classes, or all I have to do is my old weight training routine I've been doing for 5 years with no progression or no change to the program. So I think that I see a big trend in the future, near term and long term, where people are going to be utilizing stuff like your services and others online to get a program with accountability.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. Accountability is really powerful. I was actually just on an interview before this, and I'll give you a tip. Everybody who's listening, a tip for accountability, whether you're a trainer or you're just trying to get better results. I like to use pain as accountability and motivation rather than pleasure. And I'll give you an example. And this is a girl that was training with me for a while, and she knew by now what she should be doing at home, eating-wise, nutrition-wise, lifestyle, so on and so forth. But she wasn't taking action on it, right? And I said, well, how badly do you want to take action on this? She's like, I want it so bad. She's about to get married. I said, okay, why don't you bring that wedding dress here next time? She brought the wedding dress over. I took it from her, and I put it in my closet. And I said, if you can eat right, the way I've described to you, the way you know you should, the way I've seen you do for short periods of time, for the next 30 days, I'm going to give you this wedding dress back. And you're going to look better for your wedding, right? And if not, I'm going to burn it right in front of your eyes.
Wow.
I'm going to light it on fire and burn it right in front of your eyes. And guess what? She ate right for that 30 days. No problem, right? And so sometimes you need a Kickstarter that's painful. And like people want to set up pleasure goals, right? Like, oh, I'll go to Hawaii when I lose 20 pounds. But you don't have Hawaii right now. Hawaii's the future.
Yeah.
So there's not as much power to it.
That's right.
The power comes from having it in the moment, And if you don't have a wedding dress or something like that, one of my favorite simple examples I give people is, okay, take $1,000 or whatever amount of money makes you want to throw up in your mouth, right? $1,000, and give it to someone you trust that will actually go through with it if you fail. Give them $1,000 and say, I want you, if I don't come back, 30 pounds lighter, whatever your goal is, I want you to donate this $1,000 to the KKK in my name. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Set up a goal that's so scary that it'll prevent you from not achieving it. So
I like that.
Accountability to me is so powerful. And when people have a hard time, I've done some really twisted stuff, admittedly, to get them to do it, but they always do it. The trick is it has to be so scary, you're about to vomit in your mouth. If it's not scary enough, I lost $100 to this thing. Well, that's not a big deal. It should be scary, right? And if you do that, oh my God, you will go through with whatever goal you're trying to achieve, man.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. It's funny because I came across something recently that I'm sure you probably heard of. There's this Pavlok device that you can like shock your friend if they don't follow through with their habits or their goals, and I think it's a Kickstarter thing. It's not out yet, but I was like, wow, that's crazy. I thought that is the coolest idea that I could have my clients wear a device and shock them like my dog or something if they don't do what I ask them to do.
I don't know how long they would stay your clients if you were shocking them all the time. But
exactly.
I'm assuming they modeled it after the Pavlovian dogs kind of thing, right?
Exactly.
That's funny.
What about your diet? What does your normal kind of daily routine look like with your diet?
Yeah, so this is a cool one. So I like to, just like my workouts, how I kind of flow with things. I like to flow with things with my diet as well. I created a book that kind of highlights what I basically call phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 diets, right? Mm-hmm. And phase 1 is kind of a more simple approach. Generally speaking, it's cut out the processed sugars and cut out the processed grains. Make sure you're monitoring your protein. Make sure you're eating enough vegetables and cheat 1 day a week, 1 or 2 days a week. I'm pretty loose with that diet. But the reality is most people can't do that diet. So I try to get them to focus on that really basic diet, Hey, eat your protein for breakfast. Make sure you have plenty of vegetables. Eat these healthy oils instead of these shitty oils. And then a couple days a week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever. Kick your heels up. Have whatever you want. Limit your drinking to maybe a glass of red wine each night during the week. And then on the weekends, if you want to go balls to the wall, go balls to the wall, right? Give them something. Because to me, the perfect diet is the diet that you can stick to, right?
Exactly.
So I try to get people to follow that diet. And generally speaking, I follow that diet. If I feel like I'm following that diet and I'm starting to go off the rails because I have a very intense personality, then I step it up to phase 2. Phase 2 kicks it into more like a paleo mode, right? Where I take away some of like the other stuff, like, I take away the legumes, I might take away the alcohol a little bit more, I might prioritize the vegetables and the protein a little bit more, I might take away some of the fruits, strip the carbs down a little bit more. Personally, I'm an endomorphic structure, so I tend to stay the leanest when I'm doing some sort of carb cycling or pretty heavy carb depletion with a little bit of carb repletion. So I get people on the phase 2 program if they're really not getting the results they want, or if they're hitting a plateau with phase 1. And then that one includes a cheat day, but I generally try to keep it like gluten-free, try to keep the inflammatory foods down, right?
Yeah.
And then if people want to just a kick in the pants, 10 days, whatever, I call it phase 3. I modeled it after some detox programs that I've tested on myself in the past. And it's just remove all inflammatory foods, plain and simple, have green juices or green smoothies multiple times per day, and then pretty much only eat meat and vegetables and healthy fats in addition to that. And that's not meant to be lived on. But if you let's say you've been hitting phase 1 for a while, or maybe phase 1 and phase none for a little while, and you just want to get something to kick yourself in the pants for 7 days, I love doing that. I generally do a detox a couple times a year, anywhere from 7 to as much as 30 days, just to get the junk out of my system. And I'm not like a naturally lean guy. Like I grew up, like I said, with kind of really unhealthy genes, so I'm pretty happy in like the low teens body fat percentage. You know what I mean? I can be happy around there and still enjoy the foods I want to do, enjoy my lifestyle and so on and so forth. If I want to get really lean, I've got to hit like phase 2 real hard for a good period of time before I hit that 10% body fat or lower range. So I try to roll with kind of what I need to do for the time. If I'm procrastinating, I'm going phase 1 or phase none. Maybe I should kick it up to phase 3 or phase 2 for a little while to bring me back into balance. And then once I'm in balance, take it back down to phase 1. So I kind of roll with that stuff.
So it sounds like you're eating real food, unlike a lot of these guys I see on Facebook that just eat nothing but Quest bars.
Oh, dude, I'm not. I'm honestly like, I have a friend who just started a supplement company, and I'm like, you know what? I'm honestly considering starting a supplement edge of my brand, just because there's a few supplements that I take that I genuinely believe in, and I want to be able to provide people with something that I can like fully stand behind. Like, this is the best shit out there. And I'm really close to ripping off the Band-Aid on that, probably in 2015, probably not this year, but just so that I can provide people with stuff that I feel is valuable to them and not feel like I'm like selling them Quest bars and stuff like that. Because I want people to eat more vegetables, but the reality is some people just aren't going to do it. If I could find a really great green powder that tastes decent that they can mix up in the morning, I'd rather have them do that than not eat vegetables. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot of different things that I would love to be able to get to people, and I'm sure I will in due time. But yeah, eating real food, man, that's the crux of it all. I know you're friends with our mutual friend Sean Croxton.
Yep.
The Just Eat Real Food guy.
That's it. The jerk.
It's so easy, man. Like he made it so simple to me one time. He said, like, pick up the food and look at it and say, is this real food? And then you're like, oh no, it's not. It's in a box and it's processed in a factory. Okay, never mind. I won't eat that.
Exactly. It's so true. It's funny how so many of my clients are like, well, what about fruit? Is fruit bad? I said, have you lost your mind? Like, well, how have we come to this point where we think fruit and vegetables are bad? But then, well, but what about my insulin, and what about the glycemic index?
They've gone too far too fast.
Exactly. I'm like, you're not an Olympic athlete. You're not training for the combine. You're just trying to get fit.
So true, man.
Yeah, no, it's funny. Well, what supplements do you usually recommend? I mean, what's kind of like your staple sort of supplements?
Absolutely. So I'll give you like my staple basic ones. I'm like probiotic. That's probably the most consistent I've ever been on a supplement ever, is a probiotic. I've tried many different brands. I like a bunch of different brands. Someday maybe I'll come up with my own brand and really drive it down there. I'd like to see somebody come up with a probiotic with significantly more strains and significantly more CFUs of bacteria per capsule, because I tend to take a fairly high dose all the time. But I have really regular bowel movements. Generally, if I'm eating decently, I have really great stomach. It doesn't really bother me ever. So I really attribute a lot of that to the probiotics. I don't get sick very often either, and we all know the gut really supplies a lot to your immune system. So I'm a huge fan of probiotics. Second one, and I've gone back and forth on this one a lot, depending on what scientific research. I'm just like you guys, getting all screwed up by all the different things out there. But generally speaking, I'll take a fish oil. I've had a lot of injuries over time, and I notice in myself a significant difference on the feeling of inflammation in my body when I consistently take a fish oil. And generally speaking, it's about 2 to 3 grams of EPA/DHA per day. That's kind of my general guideline. Some people say go higher. I've tried higher. I didn't see anything more beneficial because of it. In addition to that is protein. I like to take some sort of protein source because I don't have the time to sit down and eat big old slabs of meat all the time. Right now, believe it or not, I love JJ Virgin's protein powder. Have you tried that one?
Yeah, she's got a great powder. Yeah.
Oh my God, it's a great protein powder, and it's I'll spare the details on it, but it tastes fantastic, and it's not made with dairy, and it's not made with garbagey vegetarian sources, and it's absolutely fantastic. I tell people what it's made with, and they don't want to try it because there's too much head stuff, but it's absolutely fantastic. And so I love her protein powder. I'd love to make something like that for myself in the future. Generally speaking, I might mix that like in a Vitamix with some blueberries, some strawberries, maybe like a handful of spinach or kale. I like to do green smoothies, and I also like to juice a lot, but I hate cleaning the juicer, so it just depends on what mood I'm in for the day. So then sometimes I'll do a green powder. I have a green powder, so if I'm not doing a lot of vegetables, I'll try to take a green powder in the morning with a squished lemon in it, just to get some of those vitamins and nutrients into my body. And then the other supplement that I take almost all the time is one that not a lot of people are taking. And I like, if you're listening to this call, if you haven't tried this, Kusha, hit me after this. I'll hook you up with my guy. Pine pollen. Pine pollen extract, all right? And pine pollen is one of the only phytoandrogens out there, right? So people talk about soy as a phytoestrogen, right? People have probably heard about that. So you eat soy and it lowers or increases your estrogen, which kind of drops down your testosterone and makes you a little bit more womanly, right? Well, I haven't had a single person try pine pollen extract and not see significant benefits androgenically. And what I'm talking about is body fat loss, easier to recover from your workouts, easier muscle gain, a feeling of more strength and intensity during your workouts, and the one that everybody reports within about 24 hours is libido. Libido goes up big time. And my buddy's tested this on himself using free testosterone tests, and it's shown a significant improvement. He's a supplement company. He can't legally publish that without all kinds of, university-approved stuff like that. But I'm here to tell you that anybody who's tried this stuff, it works. And the great part is like $25. It's not like a crazy expense either. $25, you can try it out for a couple weeks, and you'll wake up in the morning, and if you're a guy, you'll be like, boom, you'll be.
That's too bad it's not already fortified in all our foods like phytoestrogens.
Yeah, I know. Oh, God. Yeah, and the funny is, like, I use a tincture. He has powdered portions as well, and he recently got tinctures made. I'm a huge fan of the tinctures because it's like 2 droppers under the tongue, morning and evening. I mean, it's just, I cannot sing enough praises about that supplement. And it's really like, people aren't talking about it. I think Tim Ferriss finally put it under the microscope in his recent book, and it got some actual notoriety. But before that, like, me and this guy have been taking it for like several years, and there were very few people ever talking about it. So
nice. That's cool. What do you think is the one thing that everyone should be focusing on every day when it comes to health and fitness? Like, what's one thing someone could do every day?
Yeah, I'll give you a simple thing, like, because I could tell you a million different things about this, but like one of the things I feel like transformed my life the most was walking. And like people always like, oh, I want to go do more cardio for fat burning. Well, guess what? A brisk walk is one of the best fat-burning exercises you can do. You're not hitting that intensity level that jacks up your hormones, and you're burning fat during that exercise, provided you didn't eat a bunch of garbage foods and you're trying to burn that instead. But like, if you wake up in the morning, for example, you go walk for a half hour with your dog, with your family, by yourself, listen to a podcast like this, whatever it is you may do. I mean, you can kill so many birds with one stone. It's crazy. Like, I will walk with my daughter in a stroller, walking my dog, listening to a podcast, sipping a cup of tea first thing in the morning. And I'm like, okay, so I get to go outside with my daughter, I get to get sun exposure, fresh air, deep breathing, my dog gets exercise, I get to drink my tea, and I get to listen to some podcasts all at the same time. And like, I wish I could get more people to do it, but people just don't take the damn time to go walk for 20 minutes. They want to watch the latest episode of whatever is popular on TV instead. And I'm like, dude, eat your dinner, go for a walk. Wake up in the morning, go for a walk. You'll be surprised at how much just like 15 or 20 minutes walking can transform your life. It's absolutely just amazing.
No, I agree 100%. It's funny because I try to do that. Luckily I have a dog, so I kind of have to walk.
You have to do that.
I have to, otherwise he's already chewed all my clothes. And my friends make fun of me because I have holes in all my socks and shirts and whatever. But I have to walk him because he needs it. But also it's for me too, because it's funny because I always think about the body as kind of the yin and the yang. You got the fight or flight, and you have the rest and digest. And I feel like 99% of our modern lifestyles is so much fight or flight. We have sensory overload, all this auditory stuff, all these sounds at work, people talking. Especially for me, working in a gym, there's so much going on that your nervous system, your brain is just overloaded with so much that if you don't have activities that you use to kind of rejuvenate your spirit, like something as simple as walking, which for me it's kind of meditative. Then it's hard to create that balance. And the body and nature in general are always seeking balance. And I love activities like that because it helps kind of restore that balance, which is how you make progress.
Yeah. One quick tip too for people who actually do take us up on this walking thing is one of my favorite things to do. It's a breathing technique I learned from Steve Maxwell, and that is walk at just whatever pace you feel like walking. It doesn't really matter, and inhale to a count based on your steps. So you can say 3 steps, for example. Inhale 2, 3, exhale 2, 3. Inhale 2, 3, exhale 2, 3. And see how far you can go, right? I can hang out at 10 most of the time, where it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, at a little bit slower pace, obviously, the walk, and exhale 2, 3, 4. But it starts to give you, like you said, this meditative state where not only are you not really focusing on other things because you're counting your breath and your numbers and your steps, but you're also outside breathing this fresh air, so it gives you all the benefits of oxygenating your cells and like the positive feelings that are associated with deep breathing. So it's a cool way, because I've tried a lot of sitting meditations, and I am just not a sitting meditation guy at this point in my life. Maybe I will be in the future, maybe I'll figure it out in the future, but I'm not right now. So the walking meditations mixed with breathing tactics has been really valuable to me.
No, yeah, I agree. I'm kind of the same way. It's hard for me to kind of sit still. I have to constantly be moving, getting things done. So for me, exercise has always kind of been meditative for me. For me, it's always been about, it's funny because for me, if I try to exercise while thinking about other things, it actually kind of does the opposite. And it's funny because I think so many people do that. They exercise to get away from everything else. But it's actually, I feel like, way less effective when you do that. I feel like when exercise is unintentional and unconscious, that it's so ineffective. But when you do like what you're talking about, these breathing exercises while you're doing your walking, it becomes so purposeful. You become present and conscious of what you're doing that it's so much more effective from so many levels.
Right.
So is there anything else that you think people should kind of be left with today, that any advice you'd want to leave us with?
Man, we covered a lot of stuff today. I think that maybe I could touch on something real quick, and that's something I like to tell people who make excuses for themselves and they don't seem to get the results they want. So if you're listening to this right now and you're like, hey, I'm not getting the results I want, blah, 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 I feel like people don't take personal responsibility and they're not self-aware. I mean, I feel like I rarely meet somebody who has an accurate assessment of themselves. And so I try to encourage people to take a moment and like, hey, if there's something in your life going wrong right now, you need to take responsibility for it. Mm-hmm. If it's fucking terrible, if it is just makes you want to throw up in your mouth, scary, terrible, you need to take responsibility for it, right? I've had plenty of times in my life where something went completely wrong. And one of my sayings that I like to tell people is, everything happens for a good reason. It's your responsibility to find that reason. And some people take this as a negative thing. They say, holy crap, like, what if your wife gets killed and this and that? And it's like, yeah, that's a terrible thing. But the point isn't to say that that's a good thing that happened. The point is to say, find a reason to make that a good thing, right? Find a reason to make it a lesson worth living for, right? Because there's so many bad things that can happen to us, and we can let it take us down and bury us in the ground, or we can take these bad things and we can learn from them. We can make them become valuable in our lives. Like, my favorite example is when I blew up my knee 2.5 years ago. I went from squatting 400 pounds and front squatting 295 and Olympic lifting and sprinting and having this great time to all of a sudden I couldn't even bend my knee 5 degrees without crying, right? Yeah. And that was a huge hit to my ego, but I had to discover why that happened to me. I had to create a good reason. Whether it was true or not, I had to create a good reason to make that, right?
Yeah.
And so I think people need to take responsibility for themselves by really being self-aware. Like, hey, if you want to achieve this goal and you're not achieving that goal, then guess what? You don't really want to fucking achieve it.
Yeah.
Because you'd be on the road to it if you really wanted to be there. So maybe reassess it in your mind, right? Yeah. It's like I went to go train with Cirque du Soleil athlete on learning how to do a one-arm handstand. And he says, go ahead and pick up to your regular handstand. So I pick up my regular handstand, and he looks at me, and I come down, and he goes, oh, crap, where do we start? Right? So from that reaction, it became very clear that I was nowhere close to a one-arm handstand. I was going to him, oh, maybe I could get it 6 months or a year. And he's looking at me going, unless you're willing to practice a half hour a day, every day for the next year or 2 years on your basic handstand, you don't have a chance in hell at getting your one-arm handstand.
Yeah.
And so I had to ask myself this question, am I really going to work on this? No. Unfortunately, the answer at the time was no. So I said, you know what, I'm going to continue having fun with my handstands, and I'm not going to chase a goal that I know I can't achieve. So maybe you need to start thinking about like who you are, what it is that you really want to achieve, and whether or not you're willing to make that sacrifice to achieve it. And take responsibility for all the things in your life and find out a way to make those things meaningful and powerful to you so you can make progress.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%, especially, as a coach and also as a manager, you see that, it's not just, clients and gym goers, it's, employees and everybody, I think, just inherently has an issue with kind of turning things on themselves and having that introspection to say, maybe there was maybe I was part of the problem, or maybe I was part of nobody really wants to then, especially not in a managerial situation. Nobody wants to own up to, okay, sorry, it was my fault, or everyone wants to point the finger and blame somebody else. So I see that happen a lot, and just inherently, I think that's just human nature. But I feel like the most successful people in anything are the ones that have the ability to have that introspection and self-reflect and say, you know what, I think that there's something that I could do better, or there's something that I can improve on, and they always kind of revert that to themselves. And I think one of the things that helped me a lot is that I have a long commute, to and from the gym I'm at, and it's like 20 miles each way. And that drive is, I never really realized it until recently, but that drive for the last 4 or 5 years that I've had is that drive has been so fundamental, because that's the time that I self-reflect. I just cruise. It's like a straight shot. I just go straight up the freeway, and I just think and think and think, and I'm always kind of self-reflecting. What can I do better? What can I do differently? And it's so important for people to kind of take that time, whether it's proactively or reactively, to be able to look internally and say, what do I need to be doing better? How can I improve? Rather than point the finger and blame. Like, it's funny because I follow a lot of this epigenetic stuff, and if you look at the biology of us, people so often want to blame their genetics, or their parents or grandparents, whatever. But if you look at it, it's proven that it's really your environment and your thoughts. It's your environment that you put yourself in, and it's also the way you perceive that environment. All those things literally influence your blood chemistry, which influences what genes turn on and what genes turn off. And people don't really realize that. So yeah, I think that's so fundamental. So I'm glad that you said that.
Cool, man. Yeah, ultimately you have control over yourself. And one of my favorite quotes ever was from Viktor Frankl. If you've never read the book Man's Search for Meaning, it's a must-read for everybody on the planet Earth. And he says, between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space, you have the ability to choose. And within that ability to choose lies your freedom, right? And do you know anything about that book, Viktor Frankl's book?
That sounds awesome, though. I like that a lot.
Viktor Frankl was a psychologist who was interned in a prison camp in the Holocaust. And he was able to just influence so many people in there in a positive way in the most negative of circumstances. And it all comes down to your ability to take in what's happening, decide what you want to perceive it as, and then put it back out there. So I think that's a must-read for everybody.
That's powerful. Yeah, that's really powerful stuff. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time today. There's definitely a lot of good stuff that we went over today, and I even learned a lot myself. And I have a shorthand list of books that I got to get on and start reading. And yeah, I want to thank you for joining us today on the podcast.
Sure, man. It's my pleasure. I really hope that somebody listening to this got something really useful out of it.
And people can go and see your stuff at GarageWarrior.com.
You got it, man.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Thanks, man.